Okay, before we start, let's go through some quick tips on how to tackle this question. Okay, first and the most important one is to be specific, especially in answering the stating question, the what, who, where, and when question. Okay, for example, if the question asks you about common crimes, you should be able to name some of the common crimes that you know. Try not to describe, but name. Okay, for example, some common crimes that you know are rape, child abuse, sexual harassment, assault, murder. So just try to name a few, and this is where you have to really brainstorm some ideas. For example, if the question asks you environmental problems, you might want to list littering, air pollution, plastic pollution. So anything that you know, you name it here. But the trickier part is when it asks you for live events or some events. So the question, your answer will tend to be longer than the naming question. For example, if the question asks you the most memorable event of your life, so you might want to answer this question by saying the most memorable event of my life is on my 16th birthday, for example, or when I was 10 years old. And you can see other examples so that you know to answer the question specifically. Right, next. You should also remember to use connectors and cohesive devices appropriately. Okay, to do this, you should know the meaning of the cohesive devices and when to use them. Okay. Thirdly, you also need to use different language function to answer different types of questions. I will go through this a bit later in another slide. Okay, next. You should try to use models to elaborate your points, because models will help you to think further than you already do. Alright, so for example, if you want to elaborate why people prefer to shop online nowadays, so you can say this is because when we shop online, we will be able to get a lot of discounts, for example. So we'll be able to is a model. Okay. Next, you can also use determiners when referring to people, so that you won't make a very strong and overgeneralizing statement. So maybe you want to say some sellers, not all sellers, are scammers, for example. Or most teenagers prefer something over something, and many people prefer something over something. So when you add determiners, it will also make your sentence more logical. And remember, use one paragraph to answer one task. It will make your essay cleaner. Next. Coming back to the language function that I said earlier. So you should know how to state the advantage and how to actually write them into sentences. For example, if you want to state the advantage, you can say one of the advantages is we can do something with it. Or when you want to add another advantage, you can say another advantage is what? Okay. Similarly, when you want to state a disadvantage, you may say, however, a downside of something is something. When you want to add another disadvantage, you may say another disadvantage of something is something. You might want to notice that I use the word however there. Why? Because normally the question disadvantage always comes after the question disadvantage. So whenever you want to move to another paragraph of disadvantage, you use a logical connector or cohesive device. And in this case, it is however, or it is something opposite. Right, next. The question may also ask you to state the cause and effects of something. So you may want to say one of the causes of something is something. Or something is also caused by some other things. Okay? And cause is not the same as effect. Effect is how something is affected because of something. If you can get what I mean. Okay. Sorry if I'm going too far. So one of the effects of something is something. That is the easiest one. But if you want to make it more varied, you may also say something will also affect our health, for example, our mind, for example, our studies, for example. Online gaming will also affect our studies, for example. and so on. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is the most popular question. You will be asked to suggest ways to solve something, for example. So these are the ways you can suggest ways. For example, one of the ways is you must, or you should, or you have to, you ought to. So these are all models, like I said in the quick tips just now. And you might also want to do something, right? Or another way to suggest or to give ways is by using the word by. For example, you should save your money by saving it in the bank, for example. Or you should save money by taking up a part-time job, for example. Right, next. Lastly, the question might also ask you to give preference. And this is how you tell your preference in sentences. Normally, you will start with, I would prefer something rather than something, or I would prefer something over something. And then you will have to state your reason. That is why there is the word because. Right.